Yeah. So you get home with a silver medal. How's it been?
It's been kind of still like dreamlike. Like my team and my parents met me at the airport and they had all these signs and stuff, and it was just like I hadn't quite had the time to process what had happened because like with like doping control and all that, I was on a plane 2 hours after I was back from the venue after the tournament. Like I got home and then I had all of these people who like came out of their way to see me at the airport and tell me how proud they were of me, and it just like all of the tears started. That was like the first time I cried all championship. Well, I cried after my last match. I wasn't very happy with myself, and so but like thinking about just in general, like those were happy tears at the airport. It was just like, wow, all of these people like and my teammates, they always tell me all the time like how much like they love me and stuff, and it's like I'm always kind of awkward with emotions. Like I do my best, but it's like it it always feels like sometimes I think I've thought about it in the past as like they're saying this because it's nice in the way that you say, you know, thanks, have a nice day to the grocery store clerk. I always thought it was habit that they were saying like they love me and stuff and that they were proud of me. But then like I got back and like all of these people like they'd come out of their way to like tell me that, and it like I was like it sounds so dumb. Like I should have believed them like the first million times they've told me that they cared about me as a person and stuff. But like there, I was like, wow, all of these people like really truly care about me, and it really hit me just how supported I am. I think, and it's been really incredible. Like all of the messages of support and all of the people who've reached out and stuff, like people I haven't talked to since junior high have been, you know, messaging me and being like, wow, I've been following you since you were like 14, like congrats. And I was like, wow, there's so many people who care about me in my life, and it's just been so incredible. Like it's been amazing. I really, yeah, emotionally it's been so like it's meant so much to me,
Mhm.
all of this. And yeah.
And how is it throughout your sport? How have your parents supported you in this sport? I mean, because back in the day when I was wrestling, I'm going to tell you
Mhm.
that women's wrestling wasn't. It was non-existent. It wasn't there. There was girls on our high school team that wanted to wrestle, but it
Mhm.
was more of a joke. They just, they didn't want to compete, and then, it was they didn't. They just wanted to be there, with the boys. It wasn't as serious as it is now, and
Mhm.
it was also that stigmatism back then is like, girls shouldn't wrestle.
Yeah.
How do your parents support you in this sport?
My parents have always been like 100% in my corner. Like I think I've always picked sports that have been like contact like, I guess. Like I did jujitsu before I did wrestling, and so it wasn't surprising I think for me to have gone into wrestling. And like they, you know, they drove me to all my practices, even if they were like 6 a.m. in the morning, sometimes with the university team when I was in high school and stuff. Like it was never like they never made any comments about like the fact that sometimes I'd be wrestling guys or like, you know, wearing a singlet or anything like that. It never felt embarrassing. Like I've always felt very supported. So I'm very grateful that my parents have always been in my corner like that. And none of my accomplishments have ever been diminished because I'm a girl, and like I understand that like the saturation of women is not like as high in Canada as it has been in other countries. Like in the U.S., there's a lot more women wrestling and stuff like that, and so, but so sometimes it's hard to like I don't want to diminish my own accomplishments, but like it's like I'll be competing with three people as opposed to hundreds, right? And so I get all these opportunities, and I've never felt like they're less than like I've always felt like everything I've achieved has been because I deserve it, because my parents have always been so supportive in that sense. So yeah.
Mhm. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, and it takes a good support system at home well, to get you to those levels too. Without those, sometimes, and I work with kids that don't have support systems at home, and that's why I ask what the type of support is at home, because with the kids that I work with, they don't have a full parental unit sometimes,
Mhm.
and mom can't take them to practices. Dad can't take them to practices. It's just, and then they can't support them either. They're not there for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough, but it's good to see that you have that there with a great coach as well.
Yeah.
So going to, you came back, you have the celebrations going on, I guess now, and you're enjoying this. When do you get back to the mats, and what do you think it's going to look like for you?
My next tournament's going to be in New York next weekend at the Bill Farrell tournament. What's it going to look like? I'm hoping to keep implementing like all of the goals and stuff. I've had this week off to recover. I was supposed to compete in SFU, but it's not going to happen this week, just to give me a break since the Worlds. But yeah, hoping to keep implementing the goals. I'm excited because like in the States, you get to wrestle some of those girls who are like Kylie and stuff like that, just phenomenal athletes. And so like last year at the New York tournament, I got to wrestle Yelena McCoyed, who went at 76 for the US team. And so it's just really neat to have like really incredible opponents there. And like, I think I'm excited for who I could potentially wrestle. Like I know I just said I don't like to focus on who I'm wrestling and stuff, but it's nice to go out there and not wrestle the same people that you wrestle in Canada. And so I'm excited for that. Hopefully it goes well, and hopefully my process that I've been practicing at Worlds helps me out for that one too. But yeah. You
talked about the size of the U.S. and the competitiveness in the U.S. That's always been the case. I spent that's one of the reasons why my dad forced me to go down to the U.S. and compete and wrestle. How much do you guys get a chance to go down to the U.S. to actually, because it's the closest, I guess, country around here, and they're pretty dominant in most sports that they do, except for hockey. Owen
tries to find us like, I would say like 3 to 4 competitions a year where we can go down to the States. And I always really enjoy it. I think I've done pretty well at those tournaments. Like we went down to a tournament in Atlanta last year. Can't remember what school it was hosted by, but like we got to train with Life University. We went down to the Missouri Valley Open a couple years ago. We go down to Montana almost every year. New York, we went last year as well. For the most part, they go pretty well for me, I think, because, and I don't think I realized this in the past, but I think it was because I felt so relaxed, because it felt like whatever happened there, it didn't have a consequence on how I wrestled at home. Because like if I lose in the States, it's not like it matters for my ranking in Canada or anything like that. And I've done pretty well. I was wrestling like 191 and I was like 20 pounds under, and I still was like in the final, and it was kind of fun. I enjoyed it, and it was kind of learning how to take that mentality from those tournaments and bringing them back to Canada or to the to the Worlds. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about so I keep on using controllables. What was the word you used? The process goals, right? Process. You're focusing more on the controllables now than the process goals. I'm assuming that's going to be the way you're going to operate for the rest, and your coach is going to kind of help you with that. It sounds like when you were down in the U.S., you were kind of like in that state of mind the same state of mind that you were talking about when you're at the world. You didn't care. So would it fair to say that it was you that putting the pressure on yourself?
Yeah, 100%. I think so. And I always thought like I said, I've had all of these people who support me and stuff. And for some reason, I was like, they're not going to support me if I do badly. It's going to be like, nobody's ever cared if I do badly except me. I think at one point I had a coach who told me that I cared too much, and I didn't understand what that meant. I was like, what do you mean? I show up to every practice like that. I show up to every practice. I do all my extras. I'm like, I go on runs after practice and stuff like that. Like, what do you mean I care too much? Is that wrong? And I think they meant like that I was putting all of this extra pressure on myself. Like, sometimes wanting to win so much that I wouldn't try something new because I could potentially lose. Right. And thinking that everyone would like hate me if I was, lost a match or something like that, when that's never been the case. I think it's always been me just like constantly worrying about what other people would think of me if I lost, or like all of those things that nobody's ever told me. Don't know where it came from.
I think we can be our own worst enemy sometimes when we go in as an athlete and you start thinking, oh, well, you set a goal for yourself and you're like, okay, I want to win the nationals or whatever it is, the worlds, and you set that goal, and then you start to talk yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I can't do that. Well, I'm not that good, or I'll never be able to make that. And then you just don't even try.
Yeah.
Is that a mindset that's infected you at times?
Definitely, I would say so. Even like before going for Worlds, like my coach and I had a meeting and he was like, you should be aiming to be like top 5. And I was sitting there, I was like, I've never won a match at Worlds. What do you mean top 5? I just want to go and win a match. Right? Like, and I was sitting there like already trying to diminish myself and stuff. And I'm glad I was able to somehow change my mentality at the tournament where I wasn't even thinking about either of those things. I wasn't thinking about the outcome. I was just thinking about like presently what I can control. Like you said, controllable goals is a really good way to put it. Like, I've definitely spent a lot of time in the past trying to diminish my accomplishments. Even like now coming back, people will like, they'll be like, wow, you did so well and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I guess like I mean, like my second match was an injury. Like, I don't know if that's considered good, but then it's like, you know what? I was still like, I was in control of that match. I was the one like on the offensive. I was the one scoring. And so it's like, how can I be proud of myself? And I've really been trying to sit there and like think about the things I do well. And Owen even sent me a message and he was like, Vianne, like, I know you're like, this was right after the match, but he was like, I know the match didn't go how you wanted, but think about like what this means. Like, a medal at Worlds in Canada, it's not very common. Like, you should be incredibly proud of yourself. And so, yeah, I've been trying to be more proud of myself and trying to tell myself like that I did a good job since then.
Yeah,
So,
those medals are hard to come by.
yeah.
You should be very proud of yourself. Back in my day, and when my brother was wrestling, he was at the World Championships, and at that time, there was guys like Justin Abdu. They weren't medaling at these World Championships,
Mm-hmm.
U23, anything like that. That
Yeah.
wasn't happening. That was, you guys have been elevated to a level where I think coaching's got a lot better right here in Canada. It's been, and I guess I can criticize. I think the coaching, in Canada for a while wasn't up to what it needed to be. It is slowly progressing. There isn't money either here in Canada for wrestling, which kind of sucks when you can, hire, a coach in the U.S. for millions of dollars at Iowa State, but you can't even get well, I'll tell you this: U of T sent me an application for head coach there, and I looked at it, and it's a volunteer position. So, I
Wow.
mean, that's what we're competing with.
That's like the best university in Canada academically too. They should be throwing money at it. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, but that's behind the scenes. That's what has been happening to our sport, is that the money isn't being invested by our academic institutions. Whereas down the U.S., I mean, again, it's a bigger place to draw from. And wrestling is very supported in the U.S. But again, I mean, we're not even getting a little bit of money thrown at these coaches. I think programs that are doing well now, I think their institutions are finding value in having guys like Owen Dawkins or around for their university, or guys like Marty Calder around for their universities. But it's the smaller universities that, like York and U of T, with the smaller programs that don't see the value in it, don't spend it, and unfortunately that hurts our process here of getting our athletes to the podium, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
again, I went off on a tangent there.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, sometimes I speak my mind on these podcasts because you know what? Nobody can stop me.
It's okay. It's
Uh,
okay. Yeah.
Sometimes I edit myself out, just to let you know.
No, it's okay. I 100% think like coaches need to be compensated. Like the value that sports have as an adult, I think are so like in general, a lot of people play sports up until they're 18 and then they stop, like just completely quit. And I think it's so sad to not continue that and not see a value in funding like adult programs for sport, including wrestling. I don't think wrestling it doesn't have the eye of the public in Canada, which is really sad. Like in the States, it's so cool to see like how flow wrestling can like have so many followers and like just general people go out of their way to watch things like college duels and stuff like that. It's like to have that in Canada would be incredible. And it's so cool. Like our wrestling community in Canada is so tight knit, but it would be amazing to see so many like outsiders who come to watch wrestling in Canada because they love it. And yeah, that's something that should change in the future. And like,
well,
we've had budget cuts out west too, where it's like Regina doesn't have a team anymore. Fraser Valley doesn't have a team anymore. And we finally just got Lethbridge wrestling back. And like, that's been a process for the coach there to get that going. And it's so cool to see a new program finally in Western Canada, but it's so sad just how much, how undervalued wrestling has been by the universities who've been cutting them.
Well, they're even cutting them in the U.S. too. My old university cut their program.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I didn't cut it when I was down there. But yeah, no, it's I think we can learn from some of the sporting models down in the U.S. The dual meets, and I think this is just me going off a little bit of a tangent too. But dual meets up here, we don't do them. We just do. Most of the time we just do. I don't know about out west, but here in the province of Ontario, we don't do them. And we have a lot of universities that could do them. And the problem is that when you have a university do a tournament style, you have their fans come in, if you call them fans, and they watch and they sit around all day waiting for their favorite wrestler or for their, for their teammate, whoever it is. Long and boring process. Most people don't want to sit through that.
Yeah.
Go to a dual meet, you actually cheer on the team. Because there's a score for the team as you're going through it, and I can tell you it's very exciting. I've stepped onto the mat where I was one of the heavier weights, and 3,000 people in the gymnasium are going nuts because it's your match that's gonna that can make or break the win, just for a dual meet, right?
Yeah. We do a couple dual meets out here. Like at our home tournament, we have a dual meet, and it's just like the energy is so incredible. Like, and like you're sitting there and you get to watch all your teammates wrestle too, which you don't get to do at a regular tournament because you have to focus on yourself and whatnot too. And it's exciting to get to watch your teammates. I invite my family out, like I get friends out, and people like the people who I invite out who've never even watched wrestling, they come back and they're like, man, that was so amazing. I felt like they were like, I was on the edge of my seat watching it. It was so fun. And it's just like, I wish there was more like of an effort to create that audience because it is fun. And I think people would really enjoy it if it was more mainstream. Yeah,
no, it's the States have really hit on that. We did that up here after my father passed away. They had the Harry Geris duels at the University of Western Ontario where he coached, and it was the teams really got into it. It was and it was starting to catch on, but it was put to rest by one of the former coaches, but because it was too much work, apparently that's what I was told. But if you have that going on, it's easier for you to build a fan base, and it's unfortunate because again, sitting at tournaments, you're not going to get a fan base. You're going to get families coming in, which is fine, but the friends, the other students, you're not going to get that happening. And that's why the States do the dual meets and rely on the dual meets throughout the season. That's their most important thing, is the dual meets, and then they have the big tournament at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I digress.
It's all good.
So it sounds like you've hit on some really good stuff here with Owen. How did you get involved with the University of Alberta first?
Well, I'm from Edmonton, so that helps. But the Canada Summer Games year that I was eligible, I was in grade 9, and I was like the youngest possible age to go to Canada Summer Games. And my junior high coach was like, just try out for fun. And I made the team as an alternate. And that just kind of kickstarted a summer of like going out with the Canada Games team and doing all these tournaments. And Owen was the head coach for our women's Canada Games team that year. And that next following school year, he was like, just come out to some of the university practices, like just see how it goes and stuff. And since then, I've been at like every single university practice for like the last 8 years. So it's been like, kind of crazy. And just to have that opportunity at such, like, I think a critical age, like being in high school and getting to train with like not only people my own age, but also like that next age group, like the university athletes and stuff like that. And to have Owen kind of invested, I guess, in my wrestling journey from a young age. Like he's known me for like most of my wrestling career. And so yeah, that's how I got involved with that.
So it was a natural fit for you.
It was, yeah. And I think I've always liked like to work hard, I guess. Like, and so it was really challenging at the start to like do the university, like the university practices. But I think it was just like, as challenging as it was, I didn't want to like let myself give up on it. And so I just kept showing up and kept showing up until eventually it became like, it wasn't as difficult. They're still like incredibly difficult, like wrestling practices. It's never easy. Like that's not how wrestling works, but it's like now I have the like cardio and stamina for it. And at the time I developed like, I went through like a huge developmental phase of like learning how to wrestle at that level. So yeah, I kind of just didn't let myself quit at that age.
What you're talking about is grit. Angela Duckworth wrote the book on grit. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her work, but when you talk about going into a wrestling room and being challenged every single day, you're going to get beat up. You're going to get, you're going to get taken down. You're going to get, scratched. You're going to have bumps and bruises, everything, and then you just keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. Did you always have that grit, or were there times where you're like, hey, I don't want any more of this?
I think kind of like in COVID, I definitely wasn't sure if I was going to come back afterwards. But at one point during COVID, I was kind of going through a tough time. It was like, you never left the house. Like I was struggling with motivation in general for like school and stuff like that. And Owen calls me just to see how I'm doing. And he's like, go for a run. And I was like, go for a run, coach. I've never I don't enjoy running. Why would I do that? But I went for a run, and it was beautiful outside, and it was like a cold, crisp spring day, and it was just like I was surrounded by nature and stuff. And then I ran the next day, and then I ran the next day, and like I'd never been a runner in my life before this, and the running during COVID brought me so much gratitude for like I was like, it's beautiful outside, but my body can run. I'm able to move. I'm like healthy enough that I can like do this. And then we started up practices again. And I was just so grateful to be there and grateful to like be able to move my body and be healthy enough to do it during that time, that it was just like, I think it was like kind of a critical moment for me to like choose to keep going forward with wrestling, because yeah, like that would have been a really easy time to stop wrestling, I think. So yeah, I definitely wasn't sure if I would continue after that. But yeah, Owen's been really, really important for a lot of the things that I've done in wrestling. And that's one of those moments where I don't think I'd ever thanked him for that, but I definitely like brought me out of a dark place in COVID. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank goodness you didn't quit, because we wouldn't have that silver medal that's sitting somewhere in your house there, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. So let's talk about, I wanted to talk real quick before I let you go about jiu-jitsu, because I am a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And when you said that you were in jiu-jitsu, I said, hey, wow, that's awesome. I did my transition out of wrestling into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's like you did your transition from jiu-jitsu to wrestling.
Yeah. I don't wrestle anymore, or sorry, I don't do jiu-jitsu anymore. So I can't like specifically talk too much about it. And I was pretty young, but, but I think it was really good for me. I struggled with confidence as a child. And so my parents were like, a combat sport will help you with that. And jiu-jitsu is like, as you know, very much about like using your opponent's movement against them and whatnot. Very different from wrestling. But at the time I was still very unconfident, and I never competed. Even though my coaches were like, you should compete. I was like, no, I'm scared. I don't want to. And then in wrestling, I was not given that choice. They were like, why be on the team if you're not going to compete? And then I was like, I didn't realize like how strong I was like as a kid and whatnot. And like, I was pretty successful very quickly with wrestling. And so jiu-jitsu, I would say I think I was successful because I was like comfortable with contact, first of all, which I don't think a lot of 12-year-old girls are. And it also gave me like a certain amount of like body awareness that I don't think a lot of people had at that age. That kind of gave me that leg up, and that like it's nice to be good at something. And so as a kid, I really latched onto that with wrestling. And I think jiu-jitsu was definitely to thank for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, martial arts are really great for that confidence building. And I think, what it basically is just you give something for a kid to build. And, when they start building it, they get the confidence and then the reassurance. Every practice that they go to, you teach them a move, and then they master that move. It may take time. And you have to explain as a coach, like see, it's not going to come, naturally. So it's going to take time. And that's one of the things. I coach young kids now, but you see them come through that process where, they are timid. They don't want to tie up, but they don't want to do this. And then eventually when you start giving them these small little goals, you can see them blossom into these, killers.
Yeah.
I do have some killers on our team, young killers, but they turn the corner from just, being so, I guess meek at times. It's an interesting process. Glad your parents got you into that. And
Yeah, me too.
yeah, look what it did for you.
Yeah, I'm very thankful. Yeah.
Well, Vienna, right?
Vianne. Yeah.
Well, I am going to not take up too much more of your time. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast here, the Wrestling with Goals to Conceive, Believe, and Achieve podcast. That's a mouthful. And I want to say congratulations to you on that silver medal. Don't ever diminish the accomplishments that you succeeded in. I mean, just getting that for yourself and for Canada is an amazing feat. Look at the process that you went through. You grew in that entire process. So congratulations. We are celebrating over here in Ontario as well. So just to let you know, there's tons of people out here that you probably don't even know, athletes, myself, that when we saw that you had got a silver medal, we're pretty excited. I'm like, I got to get that girl on the show.
Thank you so
Not
much.
for the podcast, but just, geez, I want to hear her story.
Yeah.
I want your story to get out to these young kids and get them to understand, what it takes to get to your level. And then, you know what, most kids are, like ourselves, they're like, I can't do that. Like we talked about, I can't do that. But if you can get through that mindset, break that mindset, you can do silver medal stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really think it's amazing what you're doing out here with this podcast. So I'm grateful to be a part of it for this episode. And thank you for all the congratulations. It's really cool how much support I've had since this.